turn them off. So. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully Councilmember Neal will be here safely soon. Welcome everyone to the work session for the City of Evans, December 1st. First item on the agenda is the COVID-19 response, and we'll hear from staff.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just a brief update on the COVID statistics for this week. You can see the blue line there, that trend in terms of the cumulative positive cases is not looking good. That trend continues to spike upward over the last month or so. There has been one new fatality reported, a total of 26 since the beginning of this month. 662 new cases reported in the period from Saturday through Monday of this week. 351 individuals are in Weld County hospitals with COVID as of yesterday evening. Today's hospital population due to COVID is the highest recorded since COVID began, with 27 net new admissions since Friday. Some of the hospital statistics: hospital bed availability, about 14% or 200 of the 1,432 beds are available in the county. ICU bed availability, that 21% or 58 of those 274 ICU beds are available. And one of the things that I know the experts are watching very closely are ventilator availability. 59% or 69 of those 116 ventilators are available. The other thing being watched very closely, of course, is the trend over the state of Colorado. New cases, cumulative testing increased 9% from the previous week, resulting in an increase in cases 17% higher than the previous week. Statewide, new cases actually decreased from the week before, and that was at the highest level ever at 34,500. There were actually about 2,000 fewer cases this past week. New fatalities with COVID were 252. That unfortunately was the highest count witnessed to date. Fatalities due to COVID were 166, which was the highest count witnessed to date. And hospitalizations due to COVID totaled over 1,000 new patients, which is the second highest number of patients, following the previous week, which had the highest. Then looking back again at Weld County, some of these cumulative statistics through last Friday evening. For Weld County, 1 in 24 residents in Weld County have had a positive test to date. There were 25 fatalities in November and have been 128 cumulative. 1,960 new cases, that's the second highest weekly case count. Last week was the highest count at 2,179. In Greeley and Evans and Garden City, 1 in 19 residents have had a positive test. There were 928 new cases, and 51% of the county's cumulative COVID cases are in these 3 zip codes. Very similar story in terms of cumulative fatalities due to COVID and the number of patients hospitalized daily. That trend, that graph line going upwards, is troubling to say the least. Looking a little closer to home then at what this means for Weld County and Evans. In terms of the Colorado state standards for safer at home, levels 1 through 3, and the severe risk, which is now called the level red standard, or stay at home. Those 3 factors that we're now kind of familiar looking at: the positivity rate, that standard for number 1, 2, and 3 you see there, and severe being over 15%. You see the Weld County metric as it's been tracked through November and now into the first week of December. Started at 8%, doubled to 16%. It's now gone to right at 15.73%, which puts us a little bit above the severe category in positivity. The cases per 100,000 in the past 2 weeks, unfortunately, has gone into that about the triple the severe level at that 3,755. And the new hospital admissions per day, severe is increasing, and that is where it's at 10.43 average per day. So CDPHE has designated Weld County as in severe risk for COVID-19. And we'll go over this. I think we've been reviewing this pretty much every week. It's in that red category. As of the 22nd, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, that's where Weld County and 22 other counties across the state have fallen. And then really close to home, what does this mean for the city of Evans? Our goal here has been and continues to be to keep essential city services operating. We're doing that in every way possible to make sure that the city is functioning. The doors are open, our services are available to the city, emergency services, public works, police, our water, wastewater services, anyone who needs assistance of any kind that's available from the city has that available. We do have about 70 to 80% of our city staff working remotely, but they are available and can be made available by phone or remote meetings, can meet in person if necessary. Police and public works, maintenance, parks, water, wastewater are all available in the field and reporting daily, doing their work at full productivity. We are encouraging staff, should go beyond that, insisting that staff do as few in-person meetings as possible. We are very effective in using Teams and Zoom meetings, making those work to the best possible. Applicable staff are working remotely and keeping up a very high level of productivity. Our recreation center does continue to be open. We're maintaining small classes, fewer than 10 for our senior classes, our Silver Sneakers classes. The recreation center is open by appointment, so we're keeping the numbers down to about 10 in the cardio and the weight room. As of today, we had 1 employee out with confirmed COVID. We do have 9 additional employees out in quarantine, some with symptoms and others with confirmed contacts, so they're in quarantine, pending tests or the results of those quarantines. So that's where we're at this point with our COVID. I know you're used to these updates, but questions? I know this trend is not rosy, but that's where we're at this point in the first week in December.
Thank you, Randy. Questions of staff, anyone online? Councilmember Castle or Councilmember Johnson first, any questions?
Hi. Hey, Randy, by any chance, do we know currently how many hospital beds that we have available in Weld County?
Yes, we do. 200 of the 1,400 beds are available.
And then with it, those 1,400, is it all hospitals within Weld County, or is it additional hospitals that we utilize for Weld County residents that are outside of Weld County?
I believe, and I'll turn to Ann for confirmation, those are in Weld County. Those are the 2 Weld County hospitals.
Okay. And that's ICU and the ones that you just mentioned, is it just regular beds or ICU beds? Because I think ICU beds are less.
The ICU beds, 58 of the 274 ICU beds are available.
Okay. The reason why I asked is because I did receive information of someone that used to live, a resident that used to live in Evans, mentioning that her mother was not able to acquire a bed because currently there is a shortage. So it's just kind of interesting how the numbers state otherwise. So I was just kind of curious to see how accurate that information is.
Right. Yeah, those are very current numbers. So I'm not sure where that came from. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone here have any questions of staff or comments?
No questions or comments.
All right, thank you, Randy. Next item, item 2 is the snowplow operations plan update. We'll turn it back to staff.
Oh, he licked his finger. Oh, he got a mask instead.
I get first one.
Yeah, okay.
While Scott's distributing his show and tell items, I'll introduce this item.
Thanks, Scott.
It's been, I understand, about 3 years since staff has had an opportunity to update council on the snow plowing operations plan. I know this is an item that you all get questions from members of the public about in terms of what is the snow operations plan? How do we remove snow and de-ice the streets? What are the priorities? What is the operations plan? What streets get attention and why? Those sorts of things. So our intention tonight is to review that plan, assure you that in fact we do have one, and that it does go into effect every time that there is a forecast of snow. So Scott has done trick-or-treating there. I think all know Scott, our operations and parks manager. I'll turn this over to him in just a moment here. But so this is a review of our current snow and ice control plan. It has to do with all of our safe travel routes during and after snowstorms. This is the way we define policies, prioritize the streets that will be plowed. It's your opportunity to weigh in, ask us questions, and give us direction. If there's anything at all that is not clear or that you would like changed, we'd love to hear from you and make sure that we're following your priorities and direction in terms of making sure that the town is taken care of to the best of our ability with the resources that we have available. So what we'd like to do tonight is to talk about the service objectives, the snowplow operation deployment levels, and the way that we go about removing snow and taking care of ice. We have a growing number of streets with the annexations that we've done. As we gain Peakview in particular, we'll be growing from 100 lane miles to well over 120. There are 2 designations of streets that get plowed. Scott will go over what are primary streets and what are secondary streets and why they're called that, what the deployment levels are and how they're determined. And then a quick review of what the staff availability is and the resource availability, and how the winter snow and ice control plan works in the city. With that, I'll turn it over to Scott and go from there.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Like Randy said, we'll go over this plan. Feel free to stop me at any point, ask questions, clarification, if there's anything like that. We'll start off with a little bit of history. Our current snow and ice plan was originally developed in 2008. It was brought to a council workshop at that point. And gone over back and forth. It was also part of a larger area-wide at the time survey, several different cities involved, getting together, talking about what everybody does individually and what similarities and differences, things like that. So with that information, we developed the plan that we utilize today. I guess the overall biggest objective of the plan is to, 1, develop safe routes throughout city, and then 2, give us framework to operate under so that we have that consistency from storm to storm and season to season. The objectives of this plan are to have all designated streets, which we'll get to as we move through this, what the designated streets are, have them plowed and de-iced within 24 hours after a snowstorm or snow event. Further reducing the cost of snow removal through utilization of efficient equipment, materials, things like that, stuff that we use to fight the snow and ice as we're moving snow. This plan also divides the areas into towns so that we can effectively deal with the snow in smaller groups or smaller numbers, keeping staff and fuel costs down where we can. And it also ensures that all properties are within a 2 to 3 block travel of a plowed street at any given time. So designated streets I talked about a little bit. Designated streets are what we initially developed so that we could form our network of streets that we're going to plow. Like Randy said, we've got over 100 lane miles that we plow based off of snow totals and what our level of response is. But to be designated one of those designated streets or termed one of those designated streets, it's got to fall into 5 different criteria or a combination of those criteria. So it's either got to be an arterial or collector street, has to provide access to significant commercial or industrial areas, be somewhere near a school or a route to a school or from a school. We also took into consideration the GET bus routes that we have, and then provides access to emergency facilities. Not just the Sunrise Clinic, but we feel the complex here is an emergency facility, as well as our operations center out on 40th Street. One thing we've added to this over the last couple of years are designated sidewalks. They're, more and more we're seeing people, doesn't matter if it's winter months, summer months, people are still walking, exercising, using our sidewalks. So we wanted to figure out a network of sidewalks and trails as well that get cleared. Those designated sidewalks, again, are along an arterial or collector. Most of our arterial or collectors, we're already mowing or maintaining the area around that sidewalk. So we also go in and remove that snow. School bus stops are one of our higher priority areas that we hit after a snowstorm in terms of sidewalks, just so that the kids have somewhere to stand and wait for that bus that isn't, deep in snow or ice or anything like that. And then sidewalks that we plow shut. Unfortunately, because of street widths and snow totals, there are sidewalks at times that we don't have a choice, but we're going to end up rolling that snow off of the street up onto the sidewalk. We then come back after the fact and we'll clear that sidewalk off. And then city-owned property, of course. We're going to always remove snow off of our sidewalks at all times. So these are the maps that I gave you. And taking a look at that, all the yellow highlighted streets or roads in here are what we call our primary snow routes. And what those are they're designated streets as well. Even our secondary routes are designated streets. But those primary routes are really the backbone of the streets throughout Evans that we're going to need to be able to navigate, to get emergency services in and out, things like that. That's the beginning point for us when we start plowing snow, are those primary routes. The secondary routes, while they're still important, those are more of the nice to have. And as some of these neighborhoods have built out, that's how with these secondary routes, that's how we're maintaining that 2 to 3 block radius to a plowed street. Unfortunately, not all of our newer neighborhoods are built on that square block thing, so it gets a little bit tougher, and we plow a little bit more with those secondary routes, just to make sure that people can get to a plowed street to have that easier travel, as well as our emergency services are able to get in a little bit easier if they aren't fighting that deeper snow more than a couple blocks. And then sidewalks, same thing, just kind of a bigger map. I gave you guys the bigger versions. They're a lot easier to see blown up than they are through this presentation. So how do we respond to snow? Like I said, we've got 4 different levels that we utilize when we start to see that a storm is forecast. Level 1 obviously is our least amount of response. It's storms that are usually 0 to 2 inches. This is primarily where we always start, is in the 0 to 2 inch. Even if the storm is forecast to have 4 to 6 inches, we're going to start early on as this kind of level 1 response, where we're going to go out like this says, and we're gonna hit locations that we know are problem areas, bridges, shaded areas, curves, hills, things like that through neighborhood streets, and try and get those taken care of a little bit earlier. Our typical level 1 deployment, we aren't plowing any and every street if it's a 0 to 2 inch storm. We're looking for those slick spots and responding as we're finding them or as they get reported to us. And we operate kind of under just a normal operational hourly day at that point. If we have to, shift people around or split shifts, we do that, but we don't get into extended hours a whole lot at this level 1 deployment. For level 2, this is when a storm's expected to be somewhere between 2 and 8 inches, and we would have the possibility of a back-to-back storm lasting potentially multiple days. Our entire snow team is expected to be available, and that typically consists of 3 to 4 staff and trucks per shift for streets, and then we'll have an additional 2 to 3 staff on sidewalks taking care of that. At this point, we shift to a 12 on, 12 off schedule, and plowing and de-icing begin right away on all primary routes. Secondary routes we do to maintain that safe travel, and then we would come back and revisit those towards the end of our initial plowing response and finish getting those cleared. At this point, we also put our fleet maintenance person on call and let him know that there's a high likelihood that he's going to be coming in because we'll start to need repairs. Level 3, this is where it probably gets to a more serious storm, and we're gonna have a lot bigger presence and response, and this is going to be something that turns out to be 8 or 12 inches. We typically don't see a lot of storms that we get to this level on anymore. Maybe once or twice a year it seems like we'll get to a level 3. And not a huge shift from 2 to 3, other than we may start to need help from private contractors in a level 3 response. We're gonna go to a 12 on, 12 off for our staff, and we're gonna plow for the duration of the storm. Level 4 is a big serious response. In my tenure here, I think I've seen a level 4 response to a storm one time, and that was in 2007. We got, I think, close to 2 feet of snow in a 24-hour period. This is typically where you're going to see our EOC get started up. We're going to declare an emergency, and we're going to have more issues than just not being able to remove snow from streets. Travel will be severely impacted during these, and we will be calling on contractors to help us get this snow cleared. So those are the 4 levels that we use when we plow. Our procedure to do this is we monitor weather forecasts, and we're trying to stay a day or 2 ahead of the weather all the time and making plans if we need to, if we see something bigger forecast. So it's a constant monitoring and planning for this. And like I said, our procedure, we've got the city divided into 3 categories. So what we have are in-town primary routes, in-town secondary routes, and then our out-of-town primary routes. And in a level 3 response, we can cover all of that typically with 3 snowplows. When staff is available and when we feel like we can gain some ground on it, typically that middle of the night when there is no travel, we'll add to that just because we can get ahead at that point. If it's a big storm though, we've added, and we've had 5 or 6 plows out at one time during the day as well. So every storm's kind of different. We've got to take it what the forecast is, what the type of snow, if it's that wet, heavy snow, dry snow that seems to kind of fluff off and blow away. We respond differently to all of those. Like I said earlier, during every storm, we plow until it's over. We plow until we feel we've got everything plowed, cleared, we've got de-icer applied, and the reasonable safe travel can occur for all vehicles on our roads. The other part of this is following the storm. We think that most times you think when the storm's over, we're done, it goes away. We're still working. We're coming back to intersections because as that snow melts, it's starting to run off and refreeze. So we come back and we continue to add ice slicer and things like that, plow slush wherever that's occurring. That's where we try and get in and open stuff up a little bit more if we need to for your basic services, trash, things like that, so that they can get in and get through as easy as possible. Our after the storm operation can last several days. One of the other big things we try and do is go clear storm drains. If we can get that snow and ice out from around those storm drains, then our runoff is a lot less after the fact when it starts melting. So resources, we've got quite a bit of equipment. We've got 3 single axle dump trucks, and we primarily use those in town. They have a tighter turning radius and allow us to maneuver up and down the residential streets a lot easier. We have 2 tandem axle bigger dump trucks that we use primarily out south and west of town. Those trucks are also outfitted with a little bit different snowplow. It's got a solid steel bit on it because we aren't worried about manholes and things like that out on those western and southern roads. So we actually get a little bit better success plowing with that solid steel bit versus the ones we have in town are chunks of carbide steel that are then wrapped in rubber that allow that bit to flex over manholes and valves and stuff in the street when they shift just a little bit. Then we've got 3 pickup mounted snow plows, 2 skid steers they both have various snow removing attachments, tractors as well with various snow removal attachments, a road grader. Front end loader we primarily use just to reload our trucks in the yard. It doesn't hardly ever leave the yard during a snowstorm. Our backhoe, and then we have 4 small mowers with plows for sidewalks and trails and things like that. Our staffing, currently have 13 trained and licensed snowplow operators. That allows us to run those 12 on, 12 off shifts and get done what we need to get done. Like I said earlier, we'll have 3 to 5 plow operators and anywhere from 2 to 5 staff on sidewalks. Right here's just a shot of our typical equipment. This is a typical deployment. We have the 3 snow plows there on the bottom are what we use on the streets, and then it's a combination of equipment up there for sidewalks. We will at times, like I said, pull pickup mounted plows down and pair them with our street plows in town. Resources, again, our material, that was what I handed out in the little baggies, is actually ice slicer. The thing we like about the ice slicer is it's a combination of several different minerals. It works to a lot lower temperature than just your traditional white salt does or your road salts. Ice slicer will work all the way down to 0 degrees where your road salt typically stops at about 20. So we get a little bit better use out of it there. The other biggest thing about ice slicer is it's not that salt and sand mixture. So there's nothing for us to sweep up after we're done. Ice slicer is also mixed with it's got a little bit of clay in it from when they mine it out. What that clay does is when it gets wet, it actually helps it stick to the road a little bit. And you'll see sometimes after the storm, the white streaks on the road and at intersections. And what that is that ice slicer still laying there. That next round of storms, once it gets wet, it basically is just reactivated and starts again. So it's continually helping us. 2019 history, just to give you a little history of last year. We had measurable snow January through April and then October through December. On the roads, we used 537 tons of ice slicer. And then we also use ice slicer on our sidewalks where it's needed, this facility, school bus stops and things like that. And we used about 2,500 pounds of ice slicer on sidewalks. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions, concerns, anything like that.
Thank you. Questions, we'll start with the online there. Councilwoman Johnson, Councilwoman Castle, any questions or comments?
None for me. I don't have questions, but actually, well, I just have comments. I think your presentation was great, Scott. Thank you for, the maps. I really appreciate that because that definitely gives visuals. I did see, though, on the map that there was an area, and maybe I was trying to, I don't know if I missed this part, but schools pickup areas, are those primary plow areas or are they secondary?
All the areas around the schools will be primary, so your, 30 seconds, things like that. All the streets that run in front of a school will be on the primary routes. School bus stops, I think
Yes.
we have most all of the school bus stops are on a primary route, and if they're not a primary street route, then they are in one of our primary sidewalk routes, so that we get the kids, to their bus stop as close as we can. Obviously, we're not going door to door plowing, but around our parks and things like that are where most of the school bus stops are, and we get those cleared out right away.
There is one school bus stop area that is like behind Come and Go off of 29th and 37th. I'm not sure what the street name is,
Okay.
and it's on here, but I'm trying to, because I took a picture just to like let you know. Let me see, where's 23rd? Okay, it's on there, but it looks like it's marked as blue. And so it's like right by Prairie View Drive, kind of if you look at the map. So it's like 29th and then literally 37th. So it's right behind it. So it's the north. I'm sorry. So if you're heading north, well, I mean, map wise, I guess if you look at the map, it'll be on the north side. So
Okay.
behind Come and Go.
And I can take a look at that.
So if we can mark that one also, just because I do know that that is a bus stop and there's always kids, the little, I mean, I think for maybe middle school kids, but I always see them there. I used to see them. I mean, granted, things have changed, but that definitely is an area I would like to see, plowed for the kids and the bus, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
But aside from that, I really appreciate your presentation. And one of the things I also would suggest is if we can add it to the social media, like what the criteria are for, so I think our residents can see what we look at as far as plowing, because I know we get a lot of questions about that. And so some people really would like the inside residential streets to be plowed, but if they know kind of what the criteria that we do use, I think it will just help them understand the process.
Sure.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I think Amanda.
Amanda, did you have something? I think she said I'm good. No.
Nope, none from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from Chambers?
I have one regarding the sidewalks. So I don't know about Tuesday's storm. I'm assuming that was the Monday to Tuesday one we had last week. I'm assuming that was level 1. I had a few complaints from people about sidewalks along the ridge at Prairie View neighborhood on that butt up against those houses. That remains snowy and icy unless someone clears it out, and they don't have those opening on their fences to go clean it out. And it looks like it might be something the city takes care of. But on those lower level storms, do you need us or someone to call the city and say, hey, we see this sidewalk is covered, or should we leave it? The other place that I had a complaint about today was right across from the Come and Go, those houses along there. They kind of have the same problem. They have the fence and they have the sidewalk, but the way their houses are situated in the street, that's still covered in snow and it's getting icy, and I had a few complaints about that. So my question is, for those level 1s, do we need to say, hey, can you come take a look at this, or how's that work?
So those the sidewalk you're referring to that butts up against the ridge at Prairie View on the south side of 42nd? Is that what you're talking
It
about?
runs along Prairie View Drive, and it's against those houses.
Yes.
It's not the other side, because they
That
get sun.
sidewalk
and
is
melt.
actually the responsibility of the HOA there.
Ah,
Okay. So that one is there. We do the north side. The HOA maintains that parkway and that sidewalk there. So that one is theirs. And then the Come and Go, behind the Come and Go is commercial.
no, it's in across from the Come and Go, south of the Come and Go.
South of the Come
Yes,
and Go.
sir.
Okay, along
Yes, sir.
37th. That one is ours.
Yes, sir. And that one I had a complaint about today.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking, like, should we just call you guys? Should we tell them to call you guys, or does someone go check that?
I'll check that. Usually we do them, and I know we did them Tuesday. We got to them a little bit later Tuesday, but they may have melted and run back across there is maybe what we're running up against. But I'll double check that first thing in the morning.
So much.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So, one of the things that I get asked a lot, and I know we kind of address it by, the snow totals. There's a lot of residents that say it's great that we do our primary routes, we have our secondary routes, but they're also concerned, during a large snowstorm that, they can't get out of their streets. So, they're trying to get out, they're trying to get to these, primary roads and, arterial roads and secondary roads, but they can't. We need to find some way to let them know, hey, residential streets get plowed if and when blah.
We hit that.
And also, one of the things too that I get a lot of complaint about is ice as well. Like kind of where I live, for example, on McNitt, it kind of slopes down. So as it's plowed, the water drains down. It usually pulls up in one area, usually over between Kramer and my street of Ellis Court, right there. And that place will get plowed, but it turns into ice like that. And you see cars slide all the time over there. So that would be my thing, is just we need to just encourage them to call you guys to come out and
Sure.
and re-ice it. Because, yeah, it ices up quite a bit over in that area. And I think sometimes you're driving down the street and you're like, whoa, I'm sliding out, skating rink. But the other thing I wanted to say was, how much ice slush does the city normally keep on hand, during the winter season for preparing for the snow? We usually have a lot.
Yeah, we have. So we have to keep it inside.
Okay.
So we've got a 3-sided building that we keep it in. We've got anywhere between, kind of depending on what I'm seeing in the long range forecast, we've got anywhere between probably 150 and 200 to 300 tons at a time.
Wow.
So we try to keep quite a bit, as much as we can. That's not always the case spring and fall, because I don't like to hold it through the summer. It's right. Salt, so it's just going to start to, as we get moisture, it'll just melt itself. But we keep quite a bit on hand at any one time. The other nice thing about the ice slicer product is it's readily available through Envirotech. So we're able to get it about a 3 to 5 day turnaround.
Oh.
And if we were ever in a huge emergency, I've set up a deal with them where we can actually take our trucks directly to Envirotech and haul it ourselves if we needed to. So, but yeah, we try to keep what we need for a big storm on hand.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Neal, anything?
No, I've generally received a couple of complaints about plowing, but I wasn't here for this storm, so thankfully I haven't got it.
Sure.
Councilwoman Spear?
No, I think the only, I've heard a complaint of, we're glad that you plow, but now you've plowed the snow on an arterial and now it's blocking like a secondary street. So I don't know if we come back and when we see a big, huge pile, if you come back with a smaller truck with a blade on it or something and try to pull that out of the area there so they don't have to go from, 8 inches of snow to now they've got 2 or 3 foot of a plow bank.
Sure, and in those bigger storms, we definitely will do that. Some of the smaller stuff, if we feel like it's going to melt within about 24 hours time frame, we try to leave that alone as much as we can unless we feel that melting is going to cause a refreeze that's going to just make a bigger type of a problem. In a bigger storm, yes, we would do that. The other thing we may do is, I've said this is our network, this is what we plow. In those bigger storms, sometimes the way that snow just rolls off the plow, we'll end up with a big pile of snow there. We'll turn it, just because it's not highlighted doesn't mean we won't plow that street. It just means on a general consistent basis we're not going to. If we have to, we'll turn and go down a block or something off of any one of these routes just to clear something up.
So if a citizen felt like maybe that had happened on their street and they were having trouble getting out or they were concerned, they can go ahead and call?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing I would tell all of you is if somebody's seeing something that maybe we're not, please have them give me a call. We respond to those. Usually during a snowstorm, that's what I'm doing, is responding to those phone calls. I'll take one of the pickup mounted plows and I will go clean up things like that or respond to those phone calls of somebody not being able to get out of their driveway. Like I said, we plow sidewalks in. Sometimes these 37th Street driveways get back right up. As we're trying to get 37th clear or some of these other streets, we'll inadvertently block somebody's driveway in, and then I'll come back in something smaller, or Efren, somebody will, and we will clear those out to get people moving again. So it's never our intention to try and block somebody in and, keep them buried for days at a time, so.
Well, and the other complaint that I've had in the past is when does the city plow the paths in the parks?
So the sidewalks in the parks?
Yeah, the sidewalks in the parks. Yeah, there's a lot of places where people use it for, recreation, and they would like to, not have it. I think in particular, this was a couple of years ago, someone had said that, it was 2 or 3 days later and they still, couldn't walk through the park on a heavier snowstorm.
So if it's one of the if we're talking like an 8 to a 12-inch snowstorm, depending on how we are staffing level and how we think we have to respond, we may push off some of the park sidewalks. It's never our intent to not do them. We'll do them at 2 or 3 inches. Like I said, if we don't think it's going to melt in 24 hours, we're going to do them. We some at times in those bigger, 8 to 12 and beyond snowstorms, the, Snowmageddon, snow cyclone, whatever they want to call everything now. Those are where I start to get nervous about, am I going to have adequate staffing? Am I going to be able to respond? My primary response will always be to our streets. Sidewalks will then come secondary to that. So in a big blizzard like that, we could potentially see a time where it may be 2 days before we get it plowed. But it's in response to the, keeping the streets plowed and keeping that, the bulk of the population moving.
Great presentation. If you could throw the snow map up there real quick, the snow route map. I got one quick question for you. So a lot of the people, especially Ward 2 and all of Ward 3, are going to use 65th Avenue to get to Highway 85 to go south. There's the tiny little section right there where Milliken bumps up to us, where we cut over on 54th and then come back down, and then we take back over that road. It's missing about 50 or 100 yards right in there. Do we do that as well? Do you see where I'm talking?
Yeah, we actually do.
Okay.
Come all the way down 65th to the big curve there.
Perfect. It's just not included in your thing, and that's the main route that Ward 2 and Ward 3 use to get to 85 as opposed to going.
Yeah, so that's an error on my part. Thank you.
Perfect. I just want to make sure that was on the map. And then I just want to second Mayor Pro Tem's, he made a good point, and I'll speak for Grapevine Hollow. Right where the park drainage comes down on Costanita Street, the whole park will drain down that street, and then it flattens out where the street is. And you guys do a great job plowing because that's an arterial. But before it heads back down the street down Costanita, it just becomes an ice block. Right. So if you guys could just maybe take an extra foot or two off of that,
sure,
and let the water start heading down the street. It blocks it up like a dam, and then it backs it up into Chardonnay, and it just makes an ice rink.
Okay, so yeah, I can take a look at that. And I did want to touch too, the other big thing is, as you're talking to people as well, one of the other big reasons why we don't do every residential street all the time. Cars.
Yeah.
And it's cars, one, and then dollars.
Yeah. Sure,
if we were to plow every single street in town,
yeah.
I'd need 10 times the amount of snow plows to be able to respond in a 24-hour thing like that. So the cars are the big thing, and that's where when we pick some of these secondary routes, we have to be careful, and we really spend a lot of time looking at how much street parking does this street typically see.
I know the street I live on, you guys couldn't plow. There's 40 cars on both sides.
Yeah, and so we try to pick the best we can, and sometimes all the best we can do is one shot down the center of the street.
Yeah.
And so,
I think you guys do a great job, guys. And that's hard and a lot of work, and I think you guys do fantastic.
thank you.
Any other comments from council? All right, thank you, great job.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is council discussion. I just have one thing. I would like to wish a very, very happy birthday to our new city clerk, Julie, over there. Well, thank you for everything, and happy birthday
Thank
on
you.
behalf of the citizens of Evans.
Thanks.
That's all I have. Anyone else, something good for the order? Anyone virtually? Allie, Amanda?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right, seeing none, we will take a 15-minute break and we'll start our regular meeting.